Alrighty, the Running Man. Let's check this out.
You know, I once went on a lad's holiday in Barcelona, and in theory it sounded like an absolutely blinding weekend. We were in a beautiful city
In
with
theory?
free reign to do whatever we wanted, we had plenty of spending money, and a bunch of fun stuff lined up.
Cool.
And you know what? It was a disaster. One of our guys had his passport stolen within like an hour of arriving and had to spend half the weekend at the British Embassy trying to sort it out. Another decided to crash a go-kart into a wall at full speed and fractured 2 of his ribs. And a third man went completely AWOL on the first night and didn't show up again until the following afternoon. And it wasn't even me. Also, it turned out that one of our group was a bit too fond of the old Bolivian marching powder, which was just superb when he decided to have a fist fight with his bathroom mirror at 4 in the morning and almost got us all arrested. The point I'm making here is that sometimes things that look good on paper turn out to be complete disasters in practice. Like The Running Man, for example, a remake of the 1980s Arnold Schwarzenegger movie that promised to be a faithful adaptation of the Stephen King novel it was based on, written and directed by Edgar Wright, a man who...
And that's what I was hearing. People were commenting that it's closer to the novel, to the book. So, okay.
Gave us the legendary Cornetto trilogy, and starring Glenn Powell, a charismatic leading man who's rapidly moving into A-list territory. When you've got so many positives on your side, what could possibly go wrong?
Everything.
Well, everything as it turns out. The Running Man is a calamity of a movie, slow and boring with all the pace and dynamism of a Chris Stuckman review, a convoluted and meandering storyline that leads to the most rushed and anticlimactic ending imaginable, level dialogue, an emotional tone that can't decide if it's a gripping thriller or a goofy comedy, and a protagonist with all the depth and charisma of a puddle of congealed vomit. This movie somehow manages to be inferior to the 1987 original in every possible way.
Really? Because that didn't work for me very much. I gave it a 2.5. Trying as hard as I could not to review it in these eyes. I tried to give it credit for, in the dated form that it was in. And people vehemently disagreed with me. No, man, this movie's one of the best Arnold Schwarzenegger movies I've ever seen. To me, it's not one of his best. You know what I'm saying? Terminator 2, Predator, Commando. I still haven't seen Red Heat. That's another one that came out when I was young and I wasn't allowed to watch rated R movies. And yeah, so that's another. I've only seen pieces of Red Heat. True Lies. Yeah. And, I was watching something on the making of Conan the other day. And I've seen Conan, I've seen a lot of Conan and Red Sonja, and weren't able to really see all of them when I was younger because they came on regular TV, edited. I don't remember being captured by them. You know what I'm saying? So Conan isn't one that I'm really looking to go into, man. I don't know, but it didn't work for me like that. Hell, I like Twins way more than I like. Twins is one of my favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger movies. This didn't work like that for me.
And honestly, I can't believe it was made by the same guy who gave us Hot Fuzz and Shaun of the Dead. Anyway, somehow I
didn't see either of those.
So you don't have to. The least you can do in return is listen to me explain why you shouldn't. So just like the original movie, The Running Man takes place in a dystopian future America where the mostly impoverished population is ruled over by sinister mega corporations who keep them distracted with violent and sensationalized TV shows. The biggest of which is The Running Man. The rules are simple. Actually, no, that. They're not simple at all. They certainly used to be because the 87 movie understood the importance of pace and urgency and given the audience a simple objective to focus on. Not so this time. This time, runners have to survive for 30 days on the loose in America. They're given some spending money and a 12-hour head start, and that's it. The catch is that they're not just being hunted by...
I never knew that there was a Sub-Zero before the most famous Sub-Zero. I never knew that. I was watching, I was like, did they say Sub-Zero?
By professional killers like in the original movie, now their real enemy is the entire country. Anyone who spots them can either kill them or turn them in for a cash reward. Also, they have to send in a tape every day through a magical Dropbox system to prove that they're still alive. Enter our main man, Ben Richards, a blue-collar worker with money problems who needs medicine for his sick daughter, so he signs up for the games and soon finds himself competing in the Running Man. But before you can say, I'll be back, his cover gets blown and a kill team moves in to take him out. He barely makes it out alive, but the team are accidentally killed by a gas explosion, and the tape that Richards sends in afterwards to explain what happened gets deepfaked to frame him for the whole thing. Slowly he begins to realise the game is rigged against him, there's no way to win, and it's all just being manipulated by the network's corrupt director Dan Killian to drive up the show's ratings. Faced with
Had
the
to
game
throw that
never
inverted
really
cross
allowed to
in
win,
there.
Richards decides to stop running and go on the offensive, making contact with an underground resistance group that are trying to expose the whole thing, and sets his sights on Killian himself. But will he finally get his revenge, or is there another twist planned for him? Like I said earlier, most of the right elements were in place to make the Running Man a success.
Okay.
A desperate man forced to risk everything, the paranoia of being surrounded.
The trailer just didn't do it for me, you know. Sometimes you get the feeling through the... Matter of fact, a lot of times you get the feeling through the trailers whether something's going to be good. I would say that the majority of trailers are spot on in telling you whether a movie is going to be good or not. The majority. Some don't do such a good job. And I believe it's mostly, if they don't do a good job, they make you think that the movie might be good. But I don't know. Maybe the jury's out on that one. I gotta think about that one for a little bit. I'm trying to think if I've been fooled. How many times I've been fooled by a trailer into thinking the movie was going to be good and it was bad. Or how many times I was fooled by a trailer thinking that the movie was going to be bad and gave it a chance. It's probably more the other way because you go to see a movie if you think that the trailer is good. But if you think that the trailer is bad, you don't want to see the movie because it didn't do a good job of advertising the movie to you. You know what I mean?
By enemies and hunted every moment of your life, a race against time to stay alive, a sinister corporation willing to lie and kill and sacrifice their own people, all in the name of money and ratings, a plucky underdog fighting his way through a game that's been rigged against him and gradually winning over public support, even taking the fight to his enemies by the end. All of that sounds great. The problem is, it's been done already and far better in the 1987 movie. And I'm not trying to defend the Arnold flick as some classic of modern cinema or anything, but it was at least a serviceable story with a novel premise and decent pacing that actually had something to say about the violence, greed and sensationalism of American entertainment at the time, worked in a decent cast of interesting characters that all fit neatly into the plot, and even delivered a satisfying payoff for the hero and villain. And it did all of this in a lean and mean 101 minutes. The 2025 version does none of those things. It's over 30 minutes longer, but it somehow accomplishes less. The plot is flabby and disjointed, meandering from one uninspired set piece to another, and held together by a series of...
I have time. I'm going to go see it today or tomorrow.
Ridiculous conveniences that crop up whenever the writers have backed themselves into a corner. 3 different times in this movie, Richards has to be bailed out by some good Samaritan who turns out to be connected with the resistance in some way. Wow, that was lucky, wasn't it? And all of this leads to a major problem with pacing. There's absolutely no sense of urgency to any of this movie, and part of that problem stems from the pointlessly extended time frame. Why stretch this plot out over 30 days when you're not actually going to do anything with those 30 days? It could just as easily be 24 hours and it would make for a much more interesting story. Normally I champion movies that respect the source material, but when the source material comes from the drug-addled mind of Stephen King and you're trying to turn it into a fast-paced action thriller, well... changes are going to have to be made. Like, remember when Stanley Kubrick adapted The Shining and changed like 50% of the book to produce one of the greatest horror movies of all time, and Stephen King was so butthurt about it that he made his own version a decade later that followed the book to the letter, and it was a disaster. Well...
Did I see that? Now I gotta watch them back to back. The Shining I felt was good. It's not something I've watched a lot over the years. I think I've only seen it once or twice. But it's a good movie. I would like to see this new Stephen King one. Did they name it something else? I swear I've heard about it, but I don't know if I saw it.
Then you begin to realise that what works in a book doesn't always work on screen.
Nope.
And the thing is, I expected so
Same goes for comic books, guys.
much more from Edgar Wright, who used to be a master of high energy, rapid editing, and razor sharp dialogue. Movies like Hot Fuzz are some of the leanest, most efficient scripts you'll ever read, and watching The Running Man, I just can't understand how it came from the same person. Richards just kind of drifts from one place to another. There's way too much downtime and lengthy exposition scenes, mostly telling us stuff that we either know or suspected already, but in the least efficient way possible. There's none of the sharp, witty dialogue you'd expect from Edgar Wright. Everything's so clunky and on the nose that it felt like a movie made for preschoolers, where characters have to keep reminding the audience of what's happening and why. Richards himself explains about a dozen times that he's going to do anything to save his family, as if that wasn't obvious enough already from his actions. On that subject, Richards is a completely wasted character. The script can't decide if he's a loving and compassionate family man pushed into a desperate gamble
Or an
out of
a-hole
sheer
killer.
necessity, or an angry anti-authoritarian who wants to tear down the system and destroy anyone who gets in his way. So it tries to juggle them both, and the end result is a character who meanders as much of the plot he's stuck in. I really feel bad for Glenn Powell on this one. The guy's got a ton of likability and charisma as an actor, but it has to be used in the right way, and this movie isn't it. He looks lost most of the time, trying to get to grips with a character that makes no sense, reciting the cringy dialogue without much conviction, and generally feeling like a
Well, it can't be cringier than all the Arnold dialogue. In that original.
complete waste of talent. And it's
I
not
told people, if you want to see a time capsule, like of everything Arnold is famous for, that is silly, stupid, corny, cringe, funny, hilarious, all of it right there is in The Running Man.
like he's surrounded by big personalities either. The hunters from the original flick were this rogues gallery of larger-than-life characters that totally fit with the movie's violent game show theme.
He
they all
was
had
so
their own weapons,
stupid to me,
personalities,
man.
and style, and they felt like bosses in a video game that had to be overcome, but there's absolutely none of that here. The hunters are just generic soldiers with nothing to them, and again, I can't believe what a wasted opportunity this was for a guy like Edgar Wright. Even the character of Amber from the original movie, who was right there beside Richards for most of the film and went from a hostage to a reluctant ally to a romantic lead by the end, doesn't even show up in this version until like the final 30 minutes, and even then the film gives her nothing to do. She's just a hostage, and then she literally gets ejected from the movie, and that's it. I hate to keep coming back to the Arnold movie, but
Watch me end up liking this more than the Arnold one. We'll see. It's so dated. Like that suit he was wearing, Jesse the Body was. I was like, wait, is this a Halloween? That's what I'm saying. I was trying to pull myself back to that time and see it for what it was.
honestly, everything this version gets wrong about the story, characters, pacing, world building, and setup, that film absolutely got right. And I'm beginning to think it actually deserves a bit more respect than it got. Either way, though, you should take my advice and run as far away from this shitty remake as you can. Save your money, save your time, and save your sanity, and go watch something more enjoyable, like a exorcism. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.
All right. There we have it, folks. There we have it, folks. Man. Make sure you follow the Critical Drinker. Tell them Tyrone Magnus sent you. And if you enjoyed my thoughts in reaction to this, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, and share. 10 million subscribers. Woo.